Here's how you edit a 2-camera interview like a pro. When I started editing, I was working for Netflix doing their corporate internal videos, so I was editing 2-camera interviews like this all day. Here's my best tips and tricks to do it like a pro. So the first thing we have to do is sync up our 2 cameras and create a multicam sequence. The multicam workflow is super important for professional editors to know. This is one way to do it, the easiest way actually. Just select the clips. I'm holding Command and clicking here, or if you're on a PC, hold Control and click. Right click one of these clips, go to create multi-camera source sequence. Then it's gonna give us this menu with a bunch of complicated things. The important things that we have to do are check that audio is our synchronized point, because we don't wanna synchronize by in points or out points. We didn't use time code in this shoot, so audio is gonna be the way to do it. Track channel is just a mix down, so it's gonna hear all of the audio in our clips, match up the waveforms and sync it up for us that way. It's gonna move the source clips to a processed clips bin, but everything else looks good, so I'm just gonna hit OK. Then Premiere is gonna do the work for me, syncing this up and creating multi-camera sequences for me. And now I've got these 2 multi-cam sequences, and I'm just gonna bring these up into my sync bin just to have them, and I can actually just bring them down straight into this sequence here. It's gonna say this doesn't match the sequence's settings. Do you wanna change the sequence to match the clip settings? I'm gonna say yes, because this is in 4K and my sync timeline was in 1080p. So this is set up multi-camera sequences for us, and we can tell it's a multi-camera because it says MC1 here. And if we actually just hit the number 2 on our keyboard, if we're using the default shortcuts, it's gonna switch to camera 2. And we can see what's happening a little more clearly if we hit this button, toggle multi-camera view. And if you don't have that button up here, just hit the button editor, the plus symbol on the side here, grab that, drag it down in here wherever, and now you'll have access to this button. So you hit this button, it's gonna show you all of your cameras at the same time. Camera 1, camera 2. Great thing about this workflow is I can cut from one camera to the other at any point in the edit, and I can even do it live while I'm watching the video, which makes editing a 2-camera or 3-camera or 4-camera sequence so much easier. But there are some technical things that we need to do before we go any further, and the first thing is let's click into this multi-camera sequence. If I hold Command and double click, we only need one source of audio typically for an interview, so let's try to narrow that down. Now I think this is the B camera, right? Yeah, the B camera was just the camera audio. Sounds horrible, it's really far away. But if we go to the A camera, let's listen to that.
We're able to have education and...
Sounds good. Now, because we used the Panasonic XLR adapter on the camera that we rented, we had 2 professional audio sources going directly into the camera, so we have to split these up into 2 mono tracks if we really want to take advantage of these 2 different audio sources. But there is an easy way to do that. If we go right click and reveal in project. All right, so here is the clip in question. If I go to clip, audio options, break out to mono. It's gonna break out the stereo track into 2 discrete mono tracks, and that is something that we can really work with. So now we're gonna delete the original audio track and bring in these 2. One of them is gonna be the shotgun mic and one of them is gonna be the lav mic. Not sure which is which, but let's solo track 1 and hear what it sounds like.
I became really into that process, but again,
oh yeah, much cleaner.
Wasn't enough.
Then let's solo the second one, see how that sounds.
I became really into that process, but again,
there you go. And that sounds like the lav mic to me. And it sounds really clean. We'll probably end up using the lav mic for the entire thing as long as there's no interference with the mic. So let me make it a little louder. I'm just gonna bump it up about 10 decibels. Might be too loud even, but let's see.
Process, and I started to approach painting really differently.
Sounds
the way I painted maybe wasn't staring at.
Now, typically after creating the multicam sequence, I would immediately start editing the story, you know, finding the good sound bites, cutting them down, doing my frankenbiting, adding in music, sound effects, even text graphics, B-roll, all that kind of stuff. But for those of you that were watching last week, I wanna show how you can take the footage that we shot last week and actually elevate it in post and make it look much higher production value, more professional, more slick in post. So here's a few tricks to do that first, but normally I would do this at the end of the editing process. First of all, let's take a look at this A camera setup. The background is not out of focus enough. I wanted a shallower depth of field than what I ended up shooting on set. And that's because I didn't have a second ND filter. But what we want is for the background to be totally out of focus, just like this little plant in the foreground here. So I'm gonna try to fix it and hide my mistakes by taking advantage of some post trickery. First thing I wanna do is let's see if we can bring back some information in the window. So if I bring the whites down a little bit, oh yes, we actually can recover some data up here. If you look really closely, that's before I made the adjustment, that's after. In fact, we might wanna get a little more granular with our work here. On my Lumetri color effect, I'm just gonna grab this pen tool and make a mask around the window, something like this, something like that. Great. And then I'm going to take the mask feathering here, blow that way up, maybe 360, 400, something like that. And now if I take the whites down to -30, it's only gonna affect that window. It's not gonna affect the rest of the frame. So before, after. Okay, so that's one small adjustment, but let's do something a little more noticeable. Let's add a vignette on this clip. But since I've created a mask on this Lumetri color, I have to create another Lumetri color effect on this. Otherwise, it's only gonna affect that little part of the window I highlighted. So let's do a vignette, and let's take this down to, I don't know, -2. Let's do a pretty significant one. This is looking pretty good. And if we wanna do a before and after of this makes a really noticeable difference. That's before, after, before, after. It really draws your eye into the middle of the frame, towards the subject. It makes the whole thing just look more slick and professional to me. But we still have this issue of the background being too in focus, and I really want to do something about that. So I'm gonna move this B cam out of the way. I'm gonna hold Option or Alt and drag up to duplicate the shot here. And now the objective would be, can we isolate our subject so that we can blur out the background? To show you what I mean, I'll disable that clip for a moment, Shift E. I'll go to this clip, and I use this Excalibur plugin, which is like 75 bucks, but allows you to type in Gaussian blur on the shot, increase the blurriness to, it doesn't have to be much, let's say 18. And if just the background looked like that, but the foreground looked great, then we would be just in heaven. Now I have this other effect, Keeper, it's called, which is made by a company called FX Factory. This kind of lets you isolate a subject in your shot. So if I turn off the background, as you can see, it is just cutting out my subject as if she was in front of a green screen.
Completely sand.
And it's not perfect. So if I go to the matte, I can see what we're working with. Let's thicken this. Yep, that looks good. So let's soften it a bit, like that. And let's see where we're at now. Let's go back to the composite view.
Make painting process oriented because
this is looking great. The hair looks really nice. The subject looks great. At this point, all I would have to do is cut out the chair and take off the blur effect. We'd be good. And that is actually not that hard to do. Let's just duplicate the shot one more time. And I'm gonna take off the blur effect on this, and hopefully Premiere gets its act together. Great. And this is gonna just take a minute, but all I'm gonna do is make a mask around this chair and full screen this thing. I think what'll help though is I don't need the blur to be so pronounced. So let's reduce that as much as we can get away with. Down here to the blur, we're at 18. I think we only need like 9. It doesn't need to be very pronounced. So this is the raw shot, and then this is after we did some magic to it. So before, after. Looks pretty good to me. But now the problem is I have 3 layers. That's not gonna work with our multi-camera. So let's turn back on the B cam. Let's take these 3 shots and nest them into A cam shot 2. Now this nested layer is gonna do the work of our A camera. And if we go back out here, we can see camera 1, camera 2. Now I absolutely love the framing of the A camera. She's almost perfectly 1/3 to the left of the frame. We have this empty space to the right. But when we cut to the B cam, it looks a little weird. She's too low in the frame, which was hard to judge on the day. You know, if you're a one-man band shooter like I was in this thing, you can't be checking the camera the whole time. So I did frame a little wide intentionally on the B camera, knowing that I was shooting in 4K for a 1080p deliverable. I'd have a lot of room to punch in on the frame. So if I go into this sequence and I go to the B camera, I can just, again, play with this, say 125% scale here. But the important thing here is we want our eye line to stay consistent. So if I look at the A cam, this is where we're looking. And if I bring back the B camera, we want her eyes to be in pretty much the same spot. So I need to move the B camera more to the left to make this really look good. So let's move her over. Okay, so if we look at this eye, camera A, we're right in the same zone. That is close enough for me. But the B camera could also use a vignette. That's gonna help us out, and that's an easy one to do. So let's just add a little vignette here. So actually I would not turn on the vignette here. What I would have to do is nest this shot, assuming this was our final framing. B-cam shot 2. And then apply the vignette to the nest, and then it's gonna be an even vignette. So let's take a look at that. Much better. So before, after. Looks good. Now we gotta talk about how to actually edit this thing for story, cut down the sound bites, add in B-roll, put in music, all that good stuff. For the purpose of this video, I'm just gonna edit a small part of this interview so that you can see the techniques in action. So let's take a look. Okay, so I've got my sync timeline here with my 2 multicams in it, but let's not edit inside that. Let's duplicate that, and we'll call this string outs, or you can call it selects, or you can call it whatever you want. But the idea would be to duplicate it and then go through and cut this down to just the usable sound bites that you might want to actually use in the video. Why don't you tell me your name and what you do? All right, so we don't need that. I'll hit Q. That's a top edit. That's gonna get rid of everything.
My name is Tony Figueredo, and I'm a fine artist.
And where are you from? Cut.
I'm from Miami, Florida.
Where are you from? We don't need that.
I'm from Miami, Florida, and I am from an immigrant family from Cuba. It affects,
So mess up there, but that's fine. Cut before that.
I've always been inspired by my family.
Here we go. So, and then we cut there.
I've always been inspired
Q,
by my
top
family.
edit. So then it just goes straight
Cuba.
from.
I've always been inspired by my family, so.
Now the reason that we work with the 2-camera setup is so that anytime your subject messes up or takes too long of a beat, all you gotta do is go from this.
Immigrant family from Cuba. I've always been inspired by my family.
That looks like an awkward jump cut, but if we just cut to camera 2.
And I am from an immigrant family from Cuba. I've always been inspired by my family.
Looks great.
So whether it's in the materials.
That's power. Power in the hands of you, the editor.
My name is Tony Figueredo, and I'm a fine artist. I'm from Miami, Florida.
All right, so this intro is cutting together pretty well, but at a certain point we're gonna need to add some B-roll to keep things visually interesting and to reinforce what she's saying visually. Now I haven't shot any B-roll for this video, so that's my bad, but we can pull some stock footage from Artlist.io, sponsor of this video, and we'll get to see the techniques in action anyway. Let's say we wanna get a shot of a painter painting. Yeah, look at this, pretty good. Maybe something else. Some more close-ups like this. Let's download it. And the cool thing is, if we wanted to, we could get this footage in log, and then we could color it ourselves however we wanted. I don't really care, so I'm just gonna download it in HD. Keep it coming, keep it coming. What else? How about this close-up? That looks cool. Really, with B-roll, you want a variety of footage, and if I had actually bothered to shoot the B-roll, I would be getting close-ups and wide shots and slow-mo shots and quick shots and time lapses and all kinds of stuff. See if there's any footage of Miami that we could grab, because that's a pretty big part of the interview. Yeah, love it. Let's grab that. Ooh, these are nice. And another thing that I'm thinking as I look through this intro is this.
My name is Tony Figueredo, and I'm a fine artist.
That would be a great place to break into a little intro montage. So if I move these clips over a little bit, leave a little gap here, this would be a great place to put footage of her working, have the music come up, have a title come up, all those things, and then we go back into the interview.
I'm from Miami, Florida, and I am from an immigrant family from Cuba. I've always been inspired by my family. So.
Yes, that feels good. I'm gonna add some quick cross dissolves to all the audio just to make sure it stays smooth. And let's take a look at some of this B-roll that we pulled, huh? You can hit comma, it'll do an insert edit, or you can hit period and it'll just lay it in without moving any other clips around it. Let's see what other B-roll we got. That one's nice, going from the light into this. Sure, let's do another insert edit, comma. Got a close-up, that's nice. Let's do an insert. Let's mix it up a little. We need a different type of shot, not that. A wide is nice. It's not our subject, but we can just pretend. Suspension of disbelief, folks. Ooh, the palette. We gotta get that palette in there. So let's see, we've got some B-roll. Before I even look at it though, I'm just gonna grab some music, and we can also use our sponsor for that too. Let's pull up artlist.io one more time. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know I always recommend Artlist. It really is the best stock music library out there. They have music that doesn't sound like stock music, and no matter what kind of creator you are, they have you covered. They have lots of different plans, lots of different options, including the max plans, which are new, which I have and I love because it gives you access to everything. One-stop shop, you get all of the things you need, the footage, the music, the sound effects, the templates, plugins, everything. And they have universal licenses that cover everything. So you can get the social creator plan, and that license is gonna cover everything for your personal social media channels. Or you can get the creator pro plan, which is what I use because it covers not only your own personal work, but also any paid client work that you're gonna be doing too. Basically, if you're a video editor and you're making real money doing it, then it's so much better to have this one max plan than to be getting one track from this one website and one stock clip from this website and piecemealing entire edits throughout the year. It just takes way too long and it's way too expensive. If you wanna try out Artlist, use the link in my description. You'll get 2 months free on any annual plan. Thank you so much, Artlist. Now let's get back to this interview and see how we're looking. So let's see, video theme could be one thing we use to search for. And if we do maybe documentary would feel good. And then we can also add in mood. Let's try carefree, uplifting, groovy. Yeah, I like this one. So let's download this, and then let's see if they have any similar songs. One of my favorite features of Artlist is the ability to just look up and immediately see if what songs are similar to one that you already liked. Saves a lot of time when you're searching. This is from the same artist. Yeah, I like this artist. This is good stuff. This track's great. Drop that in. Turn the volume down a little bit.
My name is Tony Figueredo, and I'm a fine artist.
Edits itself, you know? But we want the music to start at the beginning of the thing, right? So I'm just gonna loop it. If you've seen my video about how to customize music timing, you'll know exactly what I'm doing here. And you know what? We want it to get louder when we cut into our B-roll montage too. So I'm gonna make a cut there. I'm gonna bring this up 5 decibels, do a little cross dissolve. Let's listen to that.
My name is Tony Figueredo, and I'm a fine artist.
Very nice. Got to resize my stock footage here because I'm working on a 4K timeline. That's no big deal. And really what would be great, I'm going to bring the B-roll up to track 2 just so I can see what I'm working with. It's already colored differently, which is really helpful. But if it wasn't, I could just right click it, label, and then just pick a random color. And that's just an easy way to see your A-roll versus your B-roll on your timeline.
I'm from Miami, Florida.
I want to see some B-roll of Florida or Cuba when she's saying that. So if I pull in this B-roll clip of Miami, throw that down here. Now, anytime I'm using B-roll, I'm looking for chances to cut dead air in a soundbite or to shorten up a soundbite because I can cut as many times as I want to underneath it and nobody's ever gonna know. All right, so let's see how we're looking now.
My name is Tony Figueredo, and I'm a fine artist. I'm from Miami, Florida, from an immigrant family from Cuba. I've always been inspired by my family, so whether it's in the materials I'm using or what I'm actually creating.
And now it's gonna be an even stronger intro if I can do some motion graphics over these B-roll shots. Maybe I should use Artlist.io for the motion graphics. So if I go to templates and say, let's see here, art, text, I don't know, let's see what comes up. That one's nice, I like this. So let's download that. After Effects template, why not? Bring this into my graphics folder. So let's open this up. Let's get some motion graphics to elevate this talking head interview. All right, so we're gonna play with this a little bit. It's giving us a lot of different options. I really like the A, so let's modify that. And if I jump in here, there's the A. So I will open that up. Tony's name starts with a T, so let's make it a T. It's a little too big. Let's make it smaller so it fits just in frame like that. Not bad. An F might even look cooler. Let's see what an F does. All right, and then what do we got? Let's do Tony. Pretty good. And we got this dummy text here. Let's get rid of that. Let's just write, okay, so we got some text there. So that could pop up, and then we could do one of these other templates. Maybe the keep calm, we'll change that to Tony Figueredo. So let's bring that in. We'll make it a little smaller. Yeah, that's way cooler. Let's change the word unique here. Okay. And I'm just gonna throw in some more buzzwords here. Let's have some fun here. Put some words that don't necessarily have to do with art. And then we'll end with this. What's this gonna say? Let's just have it say Tony Figueredo, centered. I could take these and remove the backgrounds and then overlay them on top of the B-roll shots. All right, so we've customized this pretty well. Let's go ahead and export. Just gonna go add to render queue. Let's make sure to export it with the alpha layers. So if we choose QuickTime as our format and then channels, make sure we get the RGB plus the alpha, and the format is Apple ProRes 4444. Okay, I've made a preset for it, so I just go quad plus alpha, and then we'll export it somewhere we can find it. Tony text graphics. Save, render. We've got some graphics. Let's go into Premiere and let's throw them in. Graphics, import, graphics, import. We don't want this first one. Let's start it with this shot. Very nice. We don't want this one. Don't want that. Don't want that. Don't want that. I think this one's good. Yep. All right, so let's grab that. We'll go back to the beginning and let's put this out here and see what we're working with. Sorry folks, I was just editing this video and I forgot to tell you the best way to clean up any bad audio you have, and it doesn't take any skill whatsoever. It's using new technology. All you gotta do is take your dialogue audio like I have on the second track right here. That means it has no effects on it whatsoever. This is just the straight audio. I've soloed it. So all we can hear is the audio. You can export it as a waveform. So we'll just call this DX, which stands for dialogue raw, and I'll export that. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this and put it on this new tool from Adobe Podcast. And what it does is enhance the speech of any audio you have. It can be really crappy audio, and it's gonna do so much to clean it up and make it sound like it was recorded in a studio, like it's in a podcast. Just gonna drag it in. And it takes a few minutes. The longer your clip, the longer it's gonna take to clean it up. Okay, so let's hear what it did to our clip.
I'm from Miami, Florida. I'm from an immigrant family
Dirty.
from Cuba. I've always been inspired by
Cleaned.
my family, whether it's
There's
in the
no
materials
reverb.
I'm using or what I'm
Sounds
actually
perfect.
creating. My family is always at the forefront.
Now I
where
just
come from is
download
always
it and we'll call this DX cleaned. Now all we've got to do is throw this back in our project. I can put it on track 1 if I want. I'm gonna mute track 2. This is also gonna put some effects on it, but you know what? I don't think we're gonna need this de-reverb anymore. We're not gonna need the de-noise. I'm just gonna keep my compressor on track 1, and let's hear what this sounds like.
My name is Tony Figueredo, and I'm a fine artist.
Sounds absolutely perfect. So now that this tool is available, I would say finish your edit and then export the dialogue, send it to Adobe Podcast, clean it up, and then throw it back in your project. You're always gonna get great audio. All right, so I went ahead and made a few more tweaks to the video, and this is the intro that we ended up with.
My name is Tony Figueredo, and I'm a fine artist. I'm from Miami, Florida. I'm from an immigrant family from Cuba. I've always been inspired by my family, whether it's in the materials I'm using or what I'm actually creating. My family is always at the forefront. Where I come from is always at the forefront, the history, the heritage.
Okay, so I put this together really fast, but you would just do this same process for the rest of the video, and you'd end up with a really strong, professionally edited 2-camera interview video. Great skill to have, really good for assistant editors. Editors know how to do a multi-camera workflow. Put this together and prosper.